Hello, everyone, and a very warm welcome to our first International Best Practice live session as part of the Tourism Recovery Program. My name is Simon Reuter. I am a program manager with NPACT, and I'm joining you today from our headquarters in Berlin, in Germany. And I'm very, very excited. We are joined by three fantastic panelists today, and we're also joined by almost 300 of all of you who've joined this session to be with us today. And numbers are still counting. We're over 300 now, so this is fantastic. I'm very excited about today's session, but I'm curious to hear how all of you are feeling. So please do me the favor and post an emoji in the chat representing how you are feeling right now, so we can get a picture of whether you're also excited about today's session. I can see a lot of hard eyes, some people feeling clowny, lots of laughing smileys, hard eye smileys. Great. This is looking great. Yeah, I'm sure that all of you have had a chance to take a look at the online course on resilience, leadership, and communication already. And today you have the opportunity to meet three outstanding experts on these topics, one of which you already know from the online courses. I'm sure you will recognize her. For us here at NPACT, the topic of resilience and leadership is of great importance. COVID-19 is just one of multiple crises the world has seen in recent years, and unfortunately, I'm sure it will not be the last crisis. So to be able to take the lead and to navigate the ship that is your business through, well, the storms of our times, it is absolutely crucial. Resilience will be the key to getting through this and future challenges. As great Nelson Mandela said, "Do not judge me by my success, but by how many times I fell down and got up again." In good times and in bad times, it is important to have reliable partners, and our fantastic partner in this program is the TUI Care Foundation. So I'm very happy to be joined by my colleague Lotte today. Lotte, handing over to you.
Thank you so much, Simon. Of course, also a really warm welcome on behalf of the TUI Care Foundation. My name is Lotte, Program Manager for TUI Care Foundation, and also joining this session now from Berlin. As you all know, the tourism is one of the sectors hit the hardest by the epidemic, and we really want to support you on the path of recovery, because we really believe that the future of tourism depends on resilient tourism businesses. So, as Simon already mentioned, to be able to take the lead and navigate your business through the storms is really crucial. But how do you do this? How to lead in a crisis, how to build resilience, how to boost team resilience, how to communicate in a crisis. What are the do's? What are the don'ts? And can you even prepare for a next crisis? I think these are all normal questions, and that's why we invited our outstanding experts today from TUI and also from our Rider network. And they will share their experiences with you. They encourage you to use new tools, new ways of thinking, to approach the difficult task of actually leading others in times of crisis and continuous change. So what we are exactly going to do today is we're going to have a 30-40 minutes panel discussion where the experts will share valuable insights on the different topics and use cases drawing from their long-standing professional experience. And at the end, we also have a Q&A session where you will have the opportunity to ask questions to the experts. Moving back to you, Simon.
Yes, in order to get your questions to the three experts today, please make use of the chat. You can post your question in there directly, either during the event or later during the Q&A session. If your question is directly for one of the three experts, and you want to ask one particular expert a question, please indicate so in the chat. Just write, this question is for Barbara, this question is for Gabriela, this question is for Martin, followed by what you want to ask. We will then collect these questions and pick them up after the panel discussion to be answered live in this session.
Super. So we don't want to take up any more of the time. I'm happy to present our experts and of course a really warm welcome to all of you. So today we have with us Barbara Walder, Gabriela Schweinberger, and also Martin Riecken. And I can say they are really they are highly experienced on those topics of resilience, leadership, and communication. So you will get to know them just in a few minutes. And the session will be led by Barbara, our leadership coach, coach, and you've met her already online on a thingy. So I would say enjoy the session. Don't forget to write your questions in the chat. And now I'm passing on to you, Barbara.
This is wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. And warm welcome. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. And in crisis, it's refreshing to see we are united here as global citizens discussing topics. I'm honored to be here, introduced as an expert. The bad news is there is no easy answer how to handle a crisis. The good news is we handle it better and better by opening up to each other and create dialogue. And that's exactly what I'm trying to facilitate today, but certainly not alone, but with my wonderful colleagues, Gabriela and Martin. So I would like to pass first to Gabriela to maybe introduce yourself, give us a little bit of your life story. I could say a lot about you, but I think more authentic would be if you speak for yourself.
Hello, my name is Gabriela, as already mentioned. A very, very warm welcome to the world out there. I love to see a lot of Kenyans here, Egyptians with I have worked with, and a special welcome to my friends from Mexico, Padre. And well, to present myself shortly, I've worked in the tourism industry for many years as head of customer service, where I was leading and managing international teams. And since 10 years now, I've been working as a business coach, trainer, and consultant. I'm based in Berlin, but I work with customers worldwide. I consider myself an all-rounder, using a bunch of different competencies as a modular system, let's say, suitable for different professional challenges. And what I'm really good at is team building, leadership as a service, customer service excellency, and especially one of my favorite topics, empowering women in business and female entrepreneurs. And I try to find creative solutions together with my clients. So,
wonderful.
Yeah.
Welcome.
About me.
Thank you so much, Gabriela. I mean, there's buckets of experience and passion, and we can hear this already in the tone of voice you're displaying here. It's wonderful to be here. And over to you, Martin. How could we do this without our communication expert? Please introduce yourself.
Hello, everybody. Thank you very much for the kind introduction. The bar is quite high now, but I'm really happy to be here. I just say a few words about myself. I am, well, Martin Riecken. I work in communications for now, I believe, over 25 years. That's where I lost all my hair. I started my career in the energy business, and then in 2000 I went over to Lufthansa, to the airline, which is always kind of the boy dream for everybody living in Germany to work for the national carrier. So I worked there in different positions. I spent about 5 years in the United States. I was also responsible for beautiful South America back then, so for the Americas, the entire Americas. Moved back to Europe, worked another 3 years, I believe, for Lufthansa in Europe. And since 2015, I joined TUI as head of communications. I'm dealing with all aspects, external, internal communications. Currently, I'm focusing on internal communications mainly, and change, etc., etc. And one of the things that always stayed with me during my entire career was crisis. So when I joined Lufthansa in 2000, the sun was still shining then. 2001, there was obviously 9/11, but also wide pilot strikes. The SARS pandemic, not pandemic, but the SARS outbreak in 2003, I believe. Ash cloud, swine flu. The airline industry is never short of crisis, but I have to admit, and maybe this leads us a little bit to this topic now today, I think you always believe after each crisis, this has been the worst and it cannot get any worse. And Then came the March 15, 2020, when global pandemic was announced by the WHO. And since then, we are all dealing with this extraordinary, unprecedented situation. So I'm very happy to be here today, share my insights, and I really enjoy and look forward to a very interactive discussion with everybody.
Wonderful, Martin. Thank you so much. And some of you earlier said wonderful things already in the chat. Indeed, I had the pleasure before to be a video star and in front of camera to produce some videos on the matter of heart for me, leadership and self-leadership. My background is actually twofold. My first background is in economics, but my second one in sustainability and ecotourism. So that is a passion I still carry, and later on in my life combined it with being a coach and trainer and leadership consultant, but much more leaned towards self-discovery and true self-leadership, emotional intelligence. These are only a couple of topics I want to mention here. And I'm also a very strange person in the sense of I absolutely love change. So that is good at the minute, where I feel every day the parameters of our daily business change, and I have to prove myself adaptability. And I would like maybe, Martin, this is maybe could be perceived as a very simple question, but communication is a strange thing because we all think we know what communication is, yet we have proven and will prove in the future that we get it very often wrong. So if I ask you as a communication expert, what your Martin-shaped definition of effective, healthy, or good communication is, what would be your impromptu reply here?
Well, first of all, you took away my first line, because exactly what you said, I wanted to say as well. We all believe communication is such an easy thing. We communicate every day. If you wake up next to your better half, or if you go to the bakery and buy a croissant. And very often, though, communication goes indeed wrong, because, you know, your better half, you know, what you say doesn't fit to your expression of your face, or if you are at the bakery, you talk, but the person doesn't hear you because you're wearing a mask, whatever. So there are a lot of pitfalls in communication. And if you move, let's say, the personal communication to the professional level and to, let's say, corporate communication or communicating in an environment, in a business environment, this is when it gets not even, because the worst thing is in a personal life can be that your better half is angry at you, the baker puts in, I don't know, the wrong roll or whatever. But in professional communication, obviously, things really can become really easily difficult. I mean, we all know this expression of shitstorms when you want to say something in a good way, but then unfortunately, and now even Siri starts talking to me. Okay, I have to hide my phone somewhere. Coming back to your question, I think what many people do wrong is to, when they are asked a question and they are, let's say, come into a situation where they think they should communicate, especially if it's a crisis situation, that they just rush to and grab the microphone and start communicating without really being clear on what they want to deliver, what the message should be. And so my first advice would be, if you're asked to say something, first of all, say nothing. Sit down with a group of people you trust, take a piece of paper and write down 3 messages that you want to deliver, and that you can also, that are so simple that you can memorize them, and then maybe also train it a little bit, rehearse a little bit, and then go forward and start communicating.
This is wonderful that you say that, Martin. And remember, it reminds me of a story years back when a friend of mine, a leadership professor at Woodbury University in LA, actually said, especially in times of high emotions and negative emotions or crisis, write your replies in your head or scribble it down or write an email, but don't hit the send button. Send it maybe the next day when you are maybe more objective, more authentic and more clear, really, because clarity, I guess, is one parameter that will help to really put communication or healthy or good communication to the next level.
I completely agree. And maybe I can just quickly chime in because it's a wonderful discussion we're having here already. Because the question obviously is, now I said, okay, write down your 3 messages, but how do you get there? How do you get to these 3 messages? And that is, I think, also here again, I think what is super, super important, and many people get this wrong. And to be honest, I'm not far from being perfect anyway. So I think first of all, first question is, what is the situation? And not really from your perspective, but rather from the audience perspective or from, let's say, those that are affected by the situation. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Secondly, what is the problem? So what is the real problem of this situation? Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then what is the expectation of your audience, and what is your responsibility? And many people often speak about the situation, they describe the situation, but they forget really to clarify what their contribution to solving the situation really is. So I think that is really getting the picture first. I think that is the first and foremost exercise you have to do.
Absolutely. And I see, Gabriela, you're itching. I'm sure you wanna build on that and add maybe to this already.
Yeah, I would like to know, Martin, don't you think that asking a lot of questions, much more questions than already answers, is the way? Isn't that a way to get the communication right?
Well, if you're preparing the communication, I think exactly that's the way to ask the right questions. If you are, let's say it this way, if you are, of course, now in the situation where you are on camera in an interview, or you're standing in front of your people, your employees, they probably want answers. I think we're coming to the subject of leadership later, but I think part of being a leader means to define reality and really say, okay, this is the worst crisis we've ever been in, or maybe it's not the worst crisis. So, but really frame the situation. I think this is a very, very important exercise that a leader has to do. And here, honesty is super important. And many times people try to avoid, shift, minimize the problem. I think that could be a wrong approach.
Yeah.
I think for you and me, we are people who love to talk, right? We're very talkative. And while we're talking, we're thinking. So I think we're very similar in this case. So one sentence which comes to my mind is, when your mouth is open, your ears are shut. This is something I have to tell myself a lot of times when I'm trying to find solution for people or solution for situations. You agree?
Sorry. So go ahead. Go ahead, Martin.
Barbara, go ahead.
No, I think it's an interesting take, because I think sometimes in listening to our opposite, we listen to answer, but we hardly master listening to only understand. We are already ready to place a reply.
Hearing our answer. Yeah.
And it is wise to suffer through silence as well, in a very positive way, in order to really reflect. And I think, Martin, you mentioned authenticity or consistency in the messaging in very good times as well. That is what communication can deliver. But in crisis, I would say that authenticity and consistency and transparency are key to success, right? And the question is here, well, that's easily said. How can you be authentic and transparent if there is a crisis? But maybe you could speak to those three parameters of consistency, transparency, and authenticity in communication from your very personal experience.
I mean, part of authenticity, and that's a difficult word, by the way, for me as a German, is to be honest in the sense that sometimes you do not have answers. Leaders often believe they have to have every answer to every question. As a reality, they don't. And if you give an answer and you don't actually have an answer, but you say something, then you're practically lying to people. So I think it's perfectly, of course, you should have some answers, you know, but it should not be that you really, you should not really say something without being clear about it. And it's perfectly fine to say, I don't have the answer right now, but I take it with me, or it's top of my mind, it's top of my agenda. It's a good question, I will take it with me. That is, I think, something that should any modern leader today should be brave enough to say, without losing pace.
And maybe I'd like to go to Gabriela, because, you know, in communication, in crisis communication, when we are in this responding phase or even towards recovering, it's also about maybe building future new now. We all had to do that and continuously doing this in times of constraints. And there's this very big buzzword of resilience, and it's certainly sometimes maybe overused, that it's the perception. So what do we really mean, Gabriela, by resilience, you know, and why do you think, especially in times where we need to prove adaptability and everything is irritated and challenging, why can resilience be part of the solution at least? And how do we gain it?
Definitely. I mean, resilience is definitely something which is a buzzword right now, but I think also it can't be overrated, because resilience is the base of how we are going to work in the future and if we are going to survive or not. And when it comes to what Martin said about communication, I mean, you already mentioned we depend on communication. You cannot not communicate. If you're there, you're starting to communicate with your body, with your voice, with whatever you have. And we all want transparent communication and information, because this gives us a sense of security. And this transparency in communication leads to psychological safety, and psychological safety leads us to personal resilience in difficult situations. So this is circle, actually. So, and I like very much what Martin said. You don't need to have the answers as a leader all the time. In fact, it's very often totally wrong to think you have all the answers, because you have a pool of knowledge. If you have people working with you, and it is your job to find those people. If you have these good people with you, you should really grab into their knowledge and make them find solutions together with you. And this will make sure that people really take ownership for their work and for the whole company, and it will make them feel part of it and have influence on what happens. And this gives them psychological safety, and this leads to resilience in difficult situations. This is practically a natural circle. So you have to step back.
You see. They're hyper. Go, Martin, go.
Bursting, So, no, I have a very simple example. I have to excuse myself. Come from the airline. So if a pilot flies through a, let's say, rough patch, on a flight, this is perfectly normal for him. And you know, this is like hot air, cool air. You have these air pockets, and the plane starts moving. For the guy in the rear, in the last row, this is like, oh my God, we're all gonna die. And now, this is exactly the situation that you just described, Gabriela, because you have instability, and it is so easy for the pilot to just switch on the PA and say, hello, you know, we're just flying through some rough patches here, everything is okay, and to diffuse the situation. And I think this is the contribution that communication can give, in good and in bad ways, of course. But if you do it right, I think it's an absolutely powerful tool to give stability. And as you said, in times where the world is unhinged, upside down, this is exactly what we need, I think.
Yeah. And yet I'd like to pause us here for a minute, because probably if we were in a meta perspective, listening to the three of us, it sounds almost easy. It's very hopeful. It's straightforward. It's tools. There's best practices. But you know, we also have to acknowledge that it's really hard to be in times of constraints. You have very humble human feelings of negative emotions, of resistance for change, fear, absolutely powerful emotions. So you will find yourself as a passionate communicator or leader. Also, you look into your own toolbox and you think, somehow I'm also struggling. So maybe let's talk a little bit about that support or connecting with each other in crisis from human to human. What are best practices that you both can share here in the audience that really helped you to go through crisis, dealing with these really powerful emotions and even resistance to change or new systems?
I mean, if I may, I start. I just read a little bit in the chat here. I was told not to do it, but I'm so curious guy. So, and I mean, there was a good comment from somebody saying you don't have to, a good leader will find the answer through the best resource available to them, especially when they do not have the answer themselves. That's exactly it. In former times, the leader always needed to know the answers. A modern leader, I believe, is getting the right people around him, is maybe dedicating roles, and saying, okay, you do this, you do that, you do that, and then stick to this role and get the resources and draft communication, action, changes, whatever from it. And I believe this is really, really probably the best possible way to deal with a crisis situation, to make use, get the world off your shoulders, and deal with it together with a good team.
Yeah.
Actually, I also read something in the chat right now, but
yes,
I'm also curious. And there is Tamer saying there is a thin line between being 100% honest and losing credibility as a leader or an expert. And there, I think this is my experience. When you're authentic and you dare to tell people you don't know, you will have people at your side as long as you implement. And this is a way you have to go together with your team. If you suddenly pop up in times of crisis and you say, I don't know, I have no solution, let's think, and there's no practice for it, it will be quite difficult. We know that companies who invested in transparent, honest, appreciative communication before the crisis, they are way better off in times of crisis, and they were performing much better during COVID. Yeah, and I always noticed when I was working with startups, mentoring startups, I noticed very often that they were shy to tell their people the truth or to let them know all the details of their the company or of their concerns. But actually, when very often CEOs and leaders try to protect their employees from being overwhelmed with too much detailed information, or they want to keep things secret out of fear, I think this doesn't help, because you need the people at your side, and these people need to understand what's going on, and this has to happen as early as possible. It's never too much information, because if you think there's too much information, people can't handle it, or you think you're dealing with kids and not with adults.
Yeah, And I think you, what you mentioned here, and maybe it's also a bridge to leadership. And, you know, I mean, leadership is not something newer or standalone, because without resilience of communication, we don't have leadership either. So it's all a connected construct, really. But it's what you just mentioned, Gabriela, strikes me as crucially important always, is trust. And how do you actually make sure you have these, you invest in these humans, you know, you create environments where your staff, your employees feel seen and heard, where they can develop to become leaders themselves before a crisis. Because when you have a crisis and at the same time you have an environment that is characterized by a lack of trust or lack of transparency, a lack of humanity, a lack of whatever, you will see that crisis management or even communication plans that we suddenly implement or ideas around change management, they become fragile. Why? Because the audience is not with you. They don't follow you anymore. So I guess this is also why, for me, leadership very often starts not with leadership models and theories and many colorful tools in my toolbox, but true leadership needs to start within yourself, right? So unless you can lead yourself well, also in a crisis, you can't really expect to lead others well, just because you take the pink tool or the lilac from your toolbox. So I feel trust is something that's needed, Martin, especially when you come into this restoring phase of re-establishing trust, building a future vision, right? And maybe also controlling your narrative in new ways. You will succeed better if you have that human backbone in your teams. And I just want to offer that from my leadership perspective, what you can build on or elaborate on.
I mean, my view is the following. I believe trust and, let's say, reputation is very closely linked. Reputation, I looked it up, is a Latin word coming from reputare, bringing back, so delivering. So in other words, if you repeatedly fail to deliver what you promised to deliver, you lose reputation. And trust is built on reputation. So I trust only a person of which, I mean, I can give you a credit, of course, and say, Barbara, you look very trustful, so I will trust you. But if you then don't deliver, I'm disappointed or enlightened, however you want to put it. And then I will say, maybe. So I think, you know, the match of words and action is very, very important.
Totally, I couldn't agree more.
So if this, I mean, first of all, action is always louder than words. So I will always say, you know, you have to make sure that you really also deliver on what you say. But I think without trust, you know, communication doesn't even happen. I mean, you speak out loud words, but they are not received from the audience because they say, he can say whatever he wants to. I don't trust this person. So it's an absolute it's a foundation of communication.
And I think, Gabriela, you mentioned earlier as well, we don't as leader have to have the answers. In fact, how come we should have the answers? We don't. And I think in the chat, it was also mentioned that, of course, we need to also create healthy environments where we show ourselves our vulnerability, because why shouldn't we? And that is exactly the learning of emotional intelligence is not something for the team, but not the leader. You know, this is, each emotion carries buckets of information. So it's a signal to all of us, you know, and if we as leaders create these environments where we can really also talk to that and see how we self-actualize and learn, then I think that is already a starting point. And at the end, leadership is more like relationship management, you know?
Of course. I mean, Barbara, you mentioned a very, very important word, which in leadership sounds a little bit strange. It's vulnerability.
Yeah.
We have to implement a positive failure culture. Yeah. People dare to commit failures and learn from it, the whole team to learn from it, not be punished for it. So this requires vulnerability, and especially requires that the leader shows him or herself vulnerable. And this is considered also a cultural topic, but it's most of the time it's considered female thing, be vulnerable. But it's actually to be vulnerable or to show your vulnerability, though, meaning you are not one who knows it all, and you have your constraints and you have your worries and so on, and your fears, actually a very powerful tool, because you encourage others to do the same, and not to just to show off like everybody is walking around like I know it, and we tell each other what we know, and in the end we know nothing. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So vulnerability is a super thing I really would love to implement everywhere in leadership.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more, Gabriela, because if we end up promoting a crisis as a potential future opportunity, and we can only get there by also really sharing and having conversations with our little devils in the head, these bad buddies that come to visit, these really powerful negative, you mentioned fear, those type of emotions, and understanding them. Fear doesn't equal fear, resistance doesn't equal resistance. There's different driving forces. And I think my experience working with teams in crisis is, if we create an environment, a space where everyone has that trust in each other to show that vulnerability, that's when slowly learning can take place. Not by us saying, this is the way, let's all go right. Why should we go right? Why not left? Why not build a bridge? It's that type of mindset, I think, that I'm looking for in really true leadership.
I want to do two comments maybe. Yes. Again, I was reading in the chat, but I was also listening to you. But I saw 2 or 3 comments that were going in the same direction, saying, in our culture, saying, I don't know the answer, I come back to you, doesn't work. Or here somebody said, my boss said, I don't find it right now, but my boss said, if you don't know anything, just hide it. I appreciate we are all living in different cultures and, let's say, environments, and probably not everything that is right in Germany or in the US or wherever is right in other countries, and that is we have to, of course, adapt. But on the other hand side, I would say my personal view is actually, I think probably 10 years ago, everybody in Germany would have said the same things. And there's, I think, now change, and people are, as Gabriela and Barbara also said, offering more vulnerability. However, and that is my second remark, I think, yes, showing emotions, showing fear, anxiety is fine, but I think as a leader, you also have to overcome this. And you have at one point of time also to say, okay, I'm worried, I'm concerned, but, and then the but is very important. And I think it is important as a leader to look through the crisis, through the tunnel, and have a look already at what is at the end of the tunnel and how the landscape looks outside. Yeah. And I think this is the role also of a leader in the end. Truly. Because he's the front runner, still, or she.
Absolutely. And if you
I think a leader should always say we and not me. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And there is when I absolutely agree with you. A leader should go through this. I think the answer is in the we.
And I guess, what Martin just said, if you take a change classical curve of like when you hit really rock bottom and everything is just really fragile, that's what I think I meant when I say we need to allow that vulnerability phase, because you have to go through in order to stand up again and keep walking upright, and often I have the feeling when we don't have that trust in each other, we say, yeah, okay, that's angry or fear, or we have a resistance. But if we don't really make that, at least temporarily, a total okay topic to have, we brush over it and it'll come back in double force later. So I think I didn't mean necessarily that we go on and on and on. At some point, there needs to be a future vision, you know, a change in habits, a change in mindset. But I feel it's worth going through crisis and allowing temporarily that space, because it's like with any other emotion, with grief or whatever, you need to have that space in order to move on. Just because we as leaders say, come on, everyone, let's be creative, let's brainstorm a solution. Sometimes it's not the right moment. You need to have a temporarily erected stage where people feel safe to say all the things that worry them. And only then I feel, you know, they allow themselves and the team and their colleagues to really say, okay, now I'm ready. I think I can see some light at the end of the tunnel, and I have some trust in our team and in building out this new now and future vision, really.
But this needs to be prepared in advance.
Absolutely.
You cannot just like take it out of your head.
No.
It's a long story. It's a long way to go. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And usually as leaders, we forget about this in the daily business. Yeah.
Yes.
While it should be number one of our duties.
Absolutely. Because in the chat earlier, we had also leadership versus management. Please, let's not forget, leadership is like housework, like it's a visible, it's a job. You cannot say, well, I hardly ever lead because my day-to-day routines are eating me up and I only have 5% of my time to put towards leadership. No, leadership is really different from management, because it's what Gabriela just said. It's really building, making time to know who you are in the team, what are the values, their compassions and their strength, really, you know, because that's, without knowing that, it becomes just a artifact or a lip service, you know. It's not the authentic thing. Yeah.
I think what Gabriela said resonates to me, the we. I think that's a very fair point. And I think one way, maybe I use another picture. If let's say we are on a ship and the captain is on the bridge and he has a perfect view, he can see the horizon and the coast where the ship is saved. And then there's the team which is in the machine room and still putting coals into the engine. And I think, again, here to bridge between the captain who already has the vision and the idea how we will get to the saved land, and the people that are still sweating in the machine room, I think that is what you basically is communication. I think communication can add to it. Of course, you have to have the plan as well, and you have to see the island. But communication can contribute to really explaining to everybody who's still struggling what the way out of the crisis will look like.
Oh, Martin, I absolutely love this. I will steal this for my workshop.
Yeah.
Really, the ship thing, I really love it, because actually it is not just in the moment where the crisis is. You take your people to the bridge and say, hey, don't you see what I see? Yeah. When they see it for the first time, you have to bring them up on a regular basis. Yeah. This is what I meant with the information flow that needs to flow transparent. This is a wonderful picture.
I love it. You know, sometimes
comes from experience.
Yeah. I just want to also keep an eye on our chat and see whether we have other. Yeah, I think, you know, storytelling was something I learned early on in a company. They struggled with massive simultaneous change projects in times of heavy constraints and volatility, but they used storytelling. And some of you may be familiar or not, but, you know, I quite liked the parts of storytelling that recreated or brought back authenticity and transparency, but in a lighter lighter way, also maybe in a more humble human way, that then build new support networks, new connections. Because I think from your point of view, Gabriela, also in multicultural context, it's all about opening up to each other. It's all about building connections, allowing new ways of collaboration as well, right? And because sometimes you are, especially in a crisis, so trapped in your own microcosmos that opening up is already the first step into a new now that feels already a little bit more comfortable. So can you relate to that part of connections and collaboration?
I mean, for me, what comes to my mind is a very simple thing we did end of last year, which was really, you know, December 2020, in the midst of the second or third wave. I can't even remember what it was, you know, skyrocketing infection numbers, no vaccine available, everything terrible. And I mean, I have a problem with the way some people use the word storytelling. I know what you mean, but sometimes it's a little bit like selling something. Storytelling to me means really being more, and I think that's probably the way you mean it as well, be more, just show things as they are. So what we did, we asked towards the end of the year, many colleagues at TUI to send us a short 15-second video of how they feel. And I must say, even if I talk about it now, you know, I get emotional again. We put it together into a video, 3 minutes. And I mean, there was no narrator, there was nothing before, behind. We just put it online in our internal network in the Smile intranet. And, you know, you immediately saw everybody's in the same boat. Yeah? They're all struggling, but they're also hopeful. They have learned, they have taken away some things. So it was like a kaleidoscope. The entire, let's say not the entire, but, you know, little pieces of the population at TUI was just shown. And I mean, that is the perfect way to get out of this situation of isolation that many people felt during this time, especially. And by the way, this idea came from a very young team member in my team, and I'm still very proud of her because she said, "Hey, let's just do that." And it was a wonderful idea, minimum effort and maximum output.
And it was a way where you and the organization made them feel seen and heard. It is that vulnerability again, because I was asked to share how I feel right now, you know, and that is a beautiful example. But Gabriela, I think you just wanted to speak and I interrupted you.
No. It's so interesting, and especially the part of the emotions, because I was just checking a little bit on the questions. And there's one question about getting emotional. And especially if you can cry in front of a camera, if you feel like it, or in front of your team. It's a tricky question because it's also deeply rooted in culture. Yeah? I can only speak for Germany. In Germany, it's a no-no. You cannot, I mean, it's considered a no-no. But actually, myself, I'm coming from a family where everybody cries. They're a happy family, but we love to cry. And it's like, since I can think, it's an issue for me. And I'm a woman, and in a professional context, I can't cry. I have been in situations, also depending on my personal mood, where I couldn't stop me from crying, where it was so overwhelming, and it was not very difficult or situations, but I was in a personal crisis, maybe at home, something, you know, maybe some difficult things. And actually, I felt when I was authentic about it, and I shared what was going on, I really gained a lot of trust, because a lot of people are feeling similar and they are struggling with the same thing. And I think it all depends on how you react on it. If you're just saying, well, I'm feeling overwhelmed, I'm very, very sorry. I'm not a machine. This is happening to me.
Absolutely.
So you can also gain trust. This is also about showing yourself vulnerable and strong at the same time. And there was one woman asking about, she said, sometimes I feel that important decisions in crisis can't be handled by women, because of the dealing with emotions. Wrong. It's wrong, definitely. I think women are especially prepared to handle crisis because we tend to be trained in empathy. I don't say we have more empathy, but we tend to be trained in being empathetic and to have a good fellow culture. Yeah? So this is something we can use, and I think it's a strength. Never let anybody tell you you are not good at handling crisis or problems just because you're a woman. You have to speak.
And I'd like to go to one question here, and I think there was a recurring pattern of us as leaders having to make decisions that are uncomfortable because it's a decision to let somebody go. It's a decision to openly discuss with somebody conflict, and how do you handle that? And, you know, of course, as leaders, we will have to make decisions. That's our job. And some decisions will be personally or from a humanitarian point of view, uncomfortable decisions. And it's, for me, crucial is the how do we break news to people. I had to let people go. I would say it didn't break me, neither did it break the person, because there is a way of communication in these situations. It's the how that we can regulate. Gabriela, you spoke to empathy. We spoke to emotional intelligence earlier. We spoke to values. We spoke to transparent, authentic, and honest, sincere communication. So all these tools will help us also in crisis, where we have to take the most impossible decisions that really seem on the surface the end of it all, but that's part of us. And, you know, I think there's always a very first time to take an uncomfortable decision or make these decisions, but you will grow in this because it's part of life. You know, we don't live in a pink cloud where everything is just perfect, because that doesn't exist. Welcome to life.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I just read another question from Hannah on how to lead in crisis, like with your values. How to do and deal with too much caring, being concerned welfare of others in the team, and avoiding being a bother to them at the same time. Ask them. Question. Ask them, how far can I go? Is this bothering you? Yeah. You mind? Just ask them. We'll give you the answers you need. Don't be afraid.
Yeah. And I think this is again here, uncomfortable decisions. Look, I mean, decision making, especially in times of constraints, challenges, irritations to all your systems around you, is it would be a lie to say this is easy. This is even for the most experienced leader, Martin, who's done this for years. Gabriela, you're in the industry, in the field for years. And yet, of course, we ourselves come to moments in time where we take a decision and then we don't have the buy-in of our team. The team suddenly is in a different sort of situation. The team is suddenly against the decision. But, you know, I think it's honesty and making sure we have that space of truthful conversation and truthful dialogue, you know, not forever, not endless, because yes, we need to find a new modus operandi to move to the next level. We can't just cry for a year. We cry, but we build a vision again. And but to me, what works always is that honest human, humble conversation with each other. And a lot of companies, in my eyes, you know, they claim that everyone claims to be humble and human, yet, you know, from experience on paper, that's one thing, but, you know, to be seen and put people first is easier said than done. But to me, it's the vehicle for conversation.
Absolutely. Frederick had one question. I'm sorry. No.
Yeah, no, I was just looking at one question or two questions. Frederick Migaud, how do you communicate to employees on the adverse effects of where's it gone now? Of a pandemic without affecting their productivity and organization? I mean, already the question is probably wrong a little bit, because I mean, if you do it right and if you communicate like Barbara just said, in an honest way on eye level and with the intention to really to really build a common view of the situation, you're not reducing but rather increasing productivity, because people have one less thing to worry about, because they know there's a leader who's communicating to me. And at least there's one thing, I mean, you know, as Gabriela said, you know, people are longing for stability. Everybody, I do, everybody probably does, yeah, to some extent, some more, others less. But I would say stability is probably an area where you can, work in the most productive way. And if you create stability by communicating and by putting the facts to the table, by also being empathetic, I think that is probably the right way to go. Yeah.
Absolutely. And if people feel that they really ask for their opinion and they have an impact on what will happen, then they take ownership. This is what I said in the beginning. So the question Frederick had is a question I get very, very, very often. Because people are afraid as leaders, they think they need to provide everything. They are worried that people will switch off when they feel that things are going difficult. No, as long as you explain them what's going on and you ask them for their opinion and you really consider their opinion for making changes, because they will exactly tell you what's needed, know that job. So then they will probably stay with you. Might still go, but the chance is higher.
But it's also that they see compassion and care in your approach, you know, and that is at the end of it, even if, you know, things are pear-shaped and we are in crisis, if we still feel that we connect through our values and beliefs and show compassion, we can strengthen the teams as well, you know. And I think one question here was, it's gone. You say first, you're feeling overwhelmed and you should have all the answers. Coming back to Gabriela's point, you don't have to have the answers. You also can't possibly solve every problem. In fact, very often you have somebody with the adequate strength in your team who should solve the problem, not you. You're creating the overall environment. You're creating that framework, you know, where everyone feels seen and can work at their best version of themselves, you know. But I'm very, very cautious in claiming ever that we as leaders should have the answers and solve every problem. It's impossible. And I've seen leaders who try this very hard and they are so overwhelmed, overworked, go into a burnout. They want to please everyone, and it is not a healthy environment to be in. It normally leads to something that is then almost counterproductive, you know.
There's a related question from Youssef Nasir. What if I feel I have to make a decision that my team does not agree with? And
so good, we always choose the same questions, Martin.
It seems like we're in a good flow here, obviously. And I mean, here, I thought about the question a little bit while Barbara was speaking. And I said to myself, well, I mean, first of all, like Barbara said, I mean, you cannot always come up with pleasing topics, and you have to make people redundant, you have to reduce salaries, you have to change your business model, etc., etc. You don't need a leader, to be honest, for when the sun is shining.
Yeah.
But then I said to myself, well, I mean, then maybe if your team does not agree, maybe you are wrong. Could
Yep.
also be an option. So,
Absolutely.
I mean, I would say, I mean, depends, of course, a lot of the situation, the size and the environment, and etc.
Totally.
But you should probably listen to the arguments and say, okay, well, I take it with me, and then I take a maybe more educated decision. And but I think what you shouldn't do, from my personal view, is take a decision today, then have a change of heart and have another decision the next day, and then talk to somebody else, and then have a third position.
Wonderful.
I think some stability also should be part of your behavior, of your leadership.
Yeah.
And I'm just looking at time, 6:01. So I want to bring our lovely Impact friends here to our stage to maybe capture questions that we didn't see, because I want to be mindful that everyone is seen and heard here. So Lotte, you've been probably practicing speed reading much better than us, because I admit I'm not good at multitasking. I want to be very present in the here and now. So I think for the remaining 20 minutes before you will have this closing moment, it would be really helpful if you see questions we haven't addressed, and if they're addressed specifically to one of us, then I'd be ever so grateful if you could do that.
Super. Yeah, I mean, there's a whole team behind it, so we are really on the chat. But first of all, thank you for this great session. I mean, it's really great to hear all your insights. It's super inspiring also for us to hear all your stories. And as you saw, there's a lot going on the chat. So also thank you to the participants for sharing your experience, your thoughts about this topic. And we have many questions. The first question is for you, I think, Barbara, from Subusi, so if I pronounced the name right. Indicators as leaders in a business we should pay attention to in order to see if the business is going on the right direction despite having these challenges?
Wow, that's a very interesting question. And of course, now I could answer more from a point of view, what is my own performance indicator, you know, how well or unwell am I doing? Now, from my experience, whenever I was struggling as a leader, I knew deep down myself, but also my team was my best mirror. I knew it. I could smell it in the air that something is not really going well. And what did I do? I made that the topic. I said, I feel there's something in the air. It's me, it's us. Let's take a minute here. Again, because I'm quite honest to the topic, you know, I wouldn't walk away from it trying harder, working longer, finding new magic tools. I would seek a conversation with my team. And the indicator is that I see a healthy team that loves to go, even in crisis, above and beyond, that remains a positive and brave to maybe show initiatives and not just follow and do, you know, it's really, for me, difficult to say it's a KPI that measures my performance. As a good leader, you should feel how well you serve your audience. And as a true passionate leader, you know when you have a disconnect with your audience. And then to me, that is an indicator that I reflect, and I then make this the topic to see where are we not aligned, what can we improve, what is missing, you know, where do we have growth and learning opportunities as a team. I hope that
Thank
answered.
you so much. Yeah. Simon, I think we have more questions.
Yeah, thank you, Barbara. Very insightful. I have a question for Gabriela coming from Frederick, who's asking, how can a company react to challenges that lie outside of their control, especially if it involves other partners as well?
I think we always come back to the same things. Yeah, we come back to communication and honesty, as long as it doesn't hurt your business, to trust. I think it's very important that you have a strong network of partners who can also be your competitors who trust and you can rely on when it comes to bigger issues. It's a giving and taking, and good networking also among partners starts with giving, not with taking, and with building a trustful network, and then you can rely on it practically. It will happen automatically. You should watch out with whom you work and with whom you partner with. And as soon as you find out people don't feel the same spirit as you do, they don't behave in a way you would do. So I think then you should look for other partners. Yeah. So relate with people who give and share and love to do that and see themselves as part of your network, and then you can go anywhere.
Can I add one thought to it? I think also from my experience, it is important to don't go into one trap that I've been in many times, to look for colleagues who are thinking the way I am thinking. And I think that is something that is very, very important, that you find people who are different than you. And, you know, it's this social equality, or how you call it. People are just like me, they look like me, and they think like me. That is probably also, it makes life easier in the beginning, but I think the results in the end are probably not as good.
Good point.
That is a good point, yeah.
Super, thank you so much. Martin, actually the following question is for you. How do you effectively communicate to, let's say, maybe demotivated staff? And yeah, why do not seem to understand the impact of the pandemic on, for example, the rate of reservations or on the results of their own operations? Can you share maybe something from your experience here?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a big question. Effective communication starts with actually that the communication takes place, which means that you do not just listen or you speak and somebody else listens, but there's also a relationship. If the relationship is damaged, you can talk as much as you want. They won't believe you. They will not trust you. They will question everything you say. So I think you have to build on a foundation in your communication. And if you don't have this foundation, you better start with building this foundation, to be honest. I mean, communication cannot be like a painting over a bad wall or something. So you really have to do that first. And then I'm always a friend of easy to remember ways to define communication. And one is the 3 C's that I always work with. One is concern. Really make clear that you are concerned with the situation of your employees, and that it matters to you. Care, empathy, and really also being able to step into their shoes and also giving them something to help themselves or something to help which helps them, whatever that is. And then last but not least, the commitment, and that is probably the most important thing. So the 3 C's, commitment to really say, I'm here to go through this situation. I cannot promise that we will do it, but I'm very hopeful, whatever the way you want to tone this, but really showing that you are committed to this situation. So care, commitment, and concern. These are the 3 maybe things you can use to structure your communication.
Nice.
Thank you very much. That's very insightful. 3 C's is also a handy thing to remember. I think the next question I want to pose to Barbara. Barbara, in your course, values played a big role. And also this was mentioned several times here in the panel today, that values can give you guidance in times of crisis. And Hannah Mategi is asking, well, how can we deal then if we have strong values and we realize that we are, let's say, overly concerned with the welfare of our team members, of our employees, if we care too much about their well-being in a situation of crisis, especially if we have to make difficult decisions, how can we balance that?
Wow, there's a lot of truth and beauty in this question. Now, let me speak to values for a minute. I work with almost in all settings with values. And when I speak about values, primarily, I don't mean mission statements on fancy websites. I mean personal values. You know, some wonderful humans have never really thought deep about their own values. If I was to ask them, what are your top 10 or 5 values, they would struggle to find them. So they have to start with 200 maybe to really think deeply. It's part of the inward facing journey, really. And the reason why that's important is that values can give us an anchor point and a sense of guidance and orientation. And these are our invisible friends, and they, together with our core strength, make us as humans great, right? So first of all, on team levels, I would talk to values frequently in the sense of us as a team as values, but to me as a leader individually, I would know about values and strength of every single team member, because I make the time for that, because I think this is part of that relationship management. Now, directly related to that is well-being. I think if we collaborate together and communicate really with that human voice, knowing where we are heading, uncomfortable decisions are easier to make and talk about than in a situation where team members just have names, but you don't know anything deeper, right? And so the well-being to me is a broader question to have. You know, a functioning team can be a high-performance team, but it's a high-performance team because you as a leader created an environment where they can be well. Even in a crisis where maybe we go above and beyond and work 50, 60, 70 hours, it's a matter of how you acknowledge that and how you promote that well-being mindset where you put humans first. So they are directly related. They cannot be measured in a KPI or in hours. It is the empathy and charisma and authenticity you you give into the team. That's your gift. That is what you can do every single day when you work together, if that makes sense. But yeah, I'm a huge fan of values, and I work in different ways with those.
Great, thank you. Yeah, talking about values, I think having respect and also the value for diversity is really important. So I do have a really nice question for Gabriela. Do you have any recommendations for women leaders to best communicate with possible clients, for example, when they disregard you in crisis situations? Yeah, sometimes she feels that an important decision in crisis can't be handled by women. Grace is asking this question. What is your opinion about it?
First of all, I would like to add something to what Barbara said, what I found very important, the focus on employees, because we have this question here from Ahmed Yehia, and he's asked, what should be the most focus of the leader? Passion and cause behind doing business, industry growth and business goals, revenues and shareholders dividends, or supporting his people and employees. And I think all 4 are equally important. If you give them 20% to each one, it will be quite good. Then you have an extra 20% more, which you also add on supporting people and employees, because they run your business and you rely on them every single moment. So it's like 20, 20, 20 and 40 for employees and people, I would say. And then coming to the question about how can women react? It's a huge cultural issue. So I cannot give you a simple answer on that, because I can talk as a German woman in German business. I work a lot with women in different countries, and I couldn't give the same answer to all of them. So first of all, I have to understand in which environment they work. What's the typical role of men and women? What is the role of a businesswoman in that environment? What can she do? What can she not do? I would definitely reach out for other women, build a strong network or join a strong network of women in order to understand what others do in this case. Yeah. Would not like to give you a straight answer, just like stand up for what you have to say like that, you know, because it might harm your business. You should be wise and work according to your cultural values. There's always an answer. And if I don't know exactly which country you are coming from, if you want to, you can just address me directly through the NPAC network and post your question or ask your question again, and I would be happy to share like some thoughts with you, and maybe I can help you with that.
Thank you very much. I think that's that is some very good remarks. I have a question for Martin, particularly. You mentioned at the beginning of the panel already that you think it is very important that when you're confronted with a crisis, that you first sit down, you gather all the information you can get to get a full picture of the situation, and then you start communicating. Now, Michael Hongo from Kenya has something to say about that. He says, well, with the COVID-19 situation, with the COVID-19 crisis, it all came as a big surprise, even to governments. And for a while, all of us didn't know what was actually going on and what was going to happen next. How can we handle such a situation of uncertainty?
Well, that's a very good question. And I mean, one thing I have to admit is, I mean, that's the nature of a crisis, that it normally comes out of the blue and without a lot of prior notice, so to say. And nevertheless, I think that some things can be planned ahead, and you can have crisis plans, you can have, you know, you can work with scenarios whatsoever. In the end, I think it often happens that then the reality looks different than your plan, and then you have to adapt. So adaptability is very, very important. Don't stick to your plans if they prove to be wrong. But normally a good plan, I would say, gives you at least, I would say, 24, 48 hours to get your ducks in the row and really make sure that you are aligned in the right way. But it is a tough one, and I, for the whole time, I wanted to say something here, and because I mean, I always sound a little bit like the super expert and the super person in communication. I can promise you and tell you, I mean, there is not a single day in the last 18 months where I was not confronted with a situation that I've never heard of before, or where I was also struggling to find the right answer to. This is an extraordinary situation, to be frank, yeah, that none of us has been in. And I'm sure there will be more, but I mean, we all learn from it and we take away things. And so in a way, every day today in these times is very stressful, but it's also, and that is my positive view on it, is also giving me learnings. Yeah? And so I think we are somehow always excelling also in this situation.
Great, thank you so much, Martin. We do have a really interesting question here. Barbara, maybe I'm asking this to you from Eric's. As most of the answers speak from a leader point of view, from a position at the top of the hierarchy, like more top-down management, can the leader also exist further down an organization? And maybe also at which point can we say we are good leaders and that we are doing okay?
Oh, I love this question. You know, I love it for so many reasons. I love it because if we were to claim that leadership is directly linked to hierarchy, then I would have a slight problem with that, because I've seen extraordinary leaders and they were not even grown-ups yet. They have, in crisis, published a book at the age of 15 and proven to be amazing leaders. So I think leadership is not something you earn in a hierarchical way. It could be like that, but I think it's much more a talent, a passion that you carry deeply in you, and that is just ready to be presented to the audience. And I've worked with very young leaders, first job into a leadership, leading small teams, and they had many other layers above them. So if you think they were in that sandwich hierarchy, very, very somewhere, but the learnings, the harvesting, the opportunities and the initiatives they could still facilitate were not limited by them being in a different hierarchical context, if you see what I mean. So yeah, that would be my take.
That's an excellent answer. I'm not sure, Martin, did you want to answer to that as well?
No, well, I just saw a follow-up question on somebody saying, Etienne Dupré, following on to Martin's answer at the moment, is it accepted to tell people that you need time to analyze the situation? That, I mean, don't take too much time, yeah? And rather, I mean, no, not a day or three. I mean, it depends on the situation, but of course, I mean, you should not be hesitant. Yeah, this is maybe, it's a good question to clarify my point. I think should be, but you should really, an analysis can take 30 minutes or 1 hour or whatever. And it's just that you do not start speaking before you think. And I would say, you should always, and I think Gabriela or Barbara said it before, you also should always be prepared to make mistakes. Yeah. In a crisis, you are having a high frequency of taking decisions, one after the other. Yeah. What do I do here? What do I do there? And under pressure, uncertainty, all the things that make decisions very difficult. And you should be prepared to make mistakes. And if you make a mistake, acknowledge the mistake. Maybe you have to apologize and then move on. Yeah, I mean, this is, as I said before in my statement before, you can only learn from the situation, and you just need to move on. But I would say no, you should not really hide, and maybe that's my last point. It's always very important to me. I think in today's world, communication is also closely related to visibility. Show your face. We are living in a world where we're all attracted by moving pictures, yeah, due to Facebook and Instagram and Twitter. When a cat moves or something, we look at it, yeah. So, and the same goes obviously for communication in businesses. We have to show ourselves. I mean, at TUI, for example, we do, I would say now 80% of our communication is live communication or recorded video communication, just like this here. I mean, 10 years ago, it was all written down. And then once in a year, we had a video, which took 4 weeks to produce. Now we do things much faster, more authentic, but visibility is really important. Don't hide in a war room. Don't hide behind your desk. Go out to your colleagues, or even better, if possible, stand among your people and gather them around you and be available. I think even being in a room, if that's possible, or outside today's situation, can create positive energy. By the way, this is one thing we are missing at TUI, that we cannot meet right now. We all work remotely for the major part. But I mean, I'm very sure there's also a scientific explanation to it. If people are in a room, you can create so much more energy than if you are just writing a letter or an email or record a message or something.
I would actually love to ask a follow-up. Oh, sorry, Gabriela.
I would love to add something, because about leadership, I found this very interesting, because I have seen a lot of situations where leaders were unable to lead in teams, and I had to show people how to lead your boss. Yeah, this is also can be a typical situation where you have to step in if the leader is not able to do that. And somebody asked, so does that mean leaders are born leaders? I think yes, people who are naturally born with this possibility, with this capacity. Actually, most of the people, I think, they are not. Me especially, I've been a very bad leader in the beginning. I wanted to be authentic and natural born leader, and I walked through the swamp of bad leadership because I had no idea until I understood. And this helped me a lot to understand what's really going on with people. So you can learn leadership, and it's actually not very difficult. It's actually very easy, and if you learn it, it's so much fun. It's so much pleasure. It's really it eases your life that much.
Wonderful. Simon, over to you. I guess we are almost at time, right? We don't want to keep the audience. For some, it's probably midnight or beyond. I don't know.
Absolutely. Yeah, I have a technical question that I would like to ask you. So we've already seen so many questions on the chat, and we haven't gotten around to answer all of them because there were so many of them, thanks to this very active audience. So people were asking if there is a chance to reach out to you after this webinar, if there is a possibility to ask you questions after this.
Yeah, sure.
Yes, absolutely. Totally okay.
Brilliant. We'd love to hear that. Lotte, over to you then.
Yeah, super. Thank you so much. We'll make sure that we maybe share the email addresses and your contact details so they can reach out to you. And of course, we will also be sharing the recording of this session for the maybe colleagues who missed the session, or if you will just rewatch the session, we will be, of course, sharing this with you. I just really want to thank all of you, the participants, experts for the session, and that you shared this really nice insights with us, sharing your experiences. And we really hope that you enjoyed the session. I hope you learned a lot. And now it's your turn on how to apply the theory and the tips and tricks you got from the experts and get into action. Just before we close the session, I know Simon also have some closing remarks and some reminders to share with you.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you, Lotte. And also from my side, thank you very much to Barbara, Gabriela, and Martin. I think this was very insightful. I learned a lot today, so kudos to you. I want to say a few words to our participants today, to the audience today. I know that this is a very hot topic, and we could see from all of your questions that you're keen on keeping on discussing this. We have this workplace group in place, and this is exactly what it's for. We will create a little post right after this session, and you're more than welcome to continue the discussion, to share your thoughts on this topic in the comments below this post, or create a new post if you feel that's adequate. That's exactly what the workplace group is for, so we can get into a constant exchange in this. Regarding this focus topic on resilience, leadership, and communication, I just want to quickly remind all of our participants, all our program participants, that the first assignment is due by the end of this week. So if you still haven't signed up to a thingy, please do so, and also get working on the assignment, because we want to see your results and your thoughts on this topic. This today was our very first international best practice live sessions as part of the tourism recovery program. We are by no means done with this topic. Starting next week, each country will have a local expert session, which will give you the opportunity to dive deeper into this topic, into this month's topic, through your local perspective. to apply all of this that you've learned in the online course and in this meeting today to your particular context. Your country leads have prepared some amazing events for you, and you can keep your eyes open for the invitation. If it hasn't arrived yet, it should soon arrive, and you'll have a chance to join these meetings as well. If you have any general questions about the program, you're always welcome to send us an email to eei@npac.org. We've already received very lovely inquiries and feedback from you. We always appreciate that. Yeah, that just leaves me to say thank you very much to everyone involved in this. Thanks to the team in the background that made this event possible. Thank you to Barbara, Gabriela, and Martin for taking the time and for sharing your experience, your stories, your thoughts, your ideas with us. I think this was a great event. I enjoyed it, and I wish everyone a very lovely rest of the week, and we look forward to seeing you again in similar circumstances.
Wonderful. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bravo. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I really enjoyed this session a lot. Thank
Likewise.
you.
Absolutely.
Wonderful.
In the background,
Really
great job, really.
Yeah.
Thank you,
I enjoyed
everyone.
the questions a lot. Yes, absolutely.
Wonderful.
By the way, we were close to 500 participants in the end.
Yay!
Whoa.
Amazing. Well,
Cool.
wonderful. Have a wonderful evening, everyone, and thank you so much.